My name is Julia Animbi, and I'm from the Department of Logistics and Supply Chain Management here at KNUST. On behalf of Group 2, I welcome you all to our presentation. Today, we'll be discussing a crucial distinction bridging the gap between being educated and being a critical thinker. In reality, critical thinking is the ultimate skill that builds us professionally and personally. Critical thinking helps us analyze information, spot weaknesses in arguments, and make sound decisions. Yet, over the years, a dangerous assumption has been developed. Most people argue the fact that being educated automatically means being a critical thinker, but that's never the case. Let's say, for instance, in an organization, an executive just makes a decision based on knowledge gained back from school without applying any critical thinking thoughts to it. So today, we will explore the gap that exists, examine the cognitive and social barriers that holds us back, and discuss how we can create high critical thinking spirits to solve real-world problems. To explain further, I'll hand over to my colleague Stephanie to come and take control.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Ajman, and I'll be continuing from where my colleague ended. Critical thinking is an essential skill that goes beyond academics. It promotes professional success, national development, and societal progress by helping people informed and local decisions. In fact, changing fields such as logistics and supply chain management. It is a key tool for solving problems and supporting growth. According to Robert Ennis in 1996, critical thinking involves decisions what to believe or to base on careful reasoning. In organization, it helps employees solve work problems strategically and fairly instead of assigning blame. Thank you.
My name is Gideon Sasu, and I'm continuing from where my colleague ended. In every nation, institution, or every country, critical thinkers are needed. Why are critical thinkers needed at every nation and institutions or countries? Critical thinkers are needed because let's take this for example. A country decides to bring in a new policy, but the people who are not critical thinkers available in the country may just accept the situation as it is. But in a nation where there are critical thinkers, they may ask questions like, why are we making this policy? What will be the effects? What will be the causes of this new policy? These questions need to be asked for critical thinking to take place. Also, let's take John defined critical thinking as the ability to have doubts. Let's take, for example, a student fail an exam. A student who is not a critical thinker may just accept the situation as it is, but a student who is a critical thinker may ask questions like, what distracted me? Why couldn't I pass these exams? Is this result legit? What should I do to improve my results next time? These are questions every critical thinking student needs to ask in case of every outcome. These questions needed to be asked to improve the grades of the students. Also, critical thinking are needed in educational institutions. Why? Because let's take for example in our lecture halls, the lecturer starts teaching. The lecturer needs contributions. The lecturer needs students to ask questions. But in this case, students are not critical thinkers. They sit idle without contributing to the lectures, which make the lectures very, very hard to understand. But let's take a lecture hall where there are critical thinkers. They ask questions, they make contributions. There may be every situation where the lecturer may make a mistake, but since there are critical thinkers available, they may cite the mistake and ask questions about it, which will improve the understanding of other students. These critical thinkers help lecture halls to be very, very, very successful. Critical thinkers are needed everywhere in every aspect of our life, education, the professionalism sectors, everywhere. So let's take critical thinking.
Hi, my name is Isaac Opoku, and I'll continue from where my colleagues ended, cognitive and psychological barrier. To understand why critical thinking is so real, we must first examine the initial designing of the human brain. True critical thinking requires mental energy, yet the brain is structurally wired to conserve energy by taking cognitive shortcuts. The most pervasive of this mental shortcut is called confirmation bias. According to Daniel Kahneman's 2001, this occurs because the brain heavily relies on the system 1, which is automatic, fast, and emotional process mode. For instance, an operational manager who emotionally performs a specific vendor will subsequently highlight the date that praises the vendor, which completely filtering out reports of the last deliver. Confirmation bias essentially locks the mind in an echo chamber of its own making, blinding it to an objective fact. Thank you.
My name is Mesata Ukwatin, and I'm resuming from where my colleague ended. So today I'm going to discuss about cognitive and psychological barriers. So, aside specific bases, the brain relies on heuristics, which are mental rules of thumb used to make quick judgments. One common trap is the availability of heuristics, where people judge the probability or sovereignty of an event based on how easily examples of it comes to mind. If a supply chain experienced a rare, highly dramatic train derailment recently, a manager using emotional reasoning might panic and completely after shipping routes based on fear, by ignoring the fact that rail transport remains their substandard, most efficient option. Overcoming these barriers require an active discipline shift into System 2, which is auditing our minds from facts due to emotional feelings. Thank you.
I'm here to continue from where my colleague ended. Educational and social barriers, sheep and poor. The most significant educational barrier is the one causing most educated people not to have the ability to think critically. In such environment, learners become accustomed to seeking correct answers from teachers and textbooks instead of analyzing evidence and developing their own arguments. Human beings are social creatures who desire acceptance and belongings. Desire can discourage independent thinking. Individuals normally conform to opinions, even when they privately doubt them.
I go by the name Christian Apiokosa. I'm presenting on why education does not guarantee critical thinking. The most dangerous assumption in modern society is that a university degree is synonymous to think. Formal education only often prioritizes the technical ability to do a task over the actual willingness to think. According to Dwyer, critical thinking is not just a cognitive tool, it is a character trait that does not guarantee they will have intellectual honesty to apply them with their ego as stake. In conclusion, education has just rather turned students to performers who just mimic their critical thinking to pass an assessment, rather than integrating it as a life skill as in 2023. Thank you.
My name is Christian Mahato, and I'll continue from where my colleague ended. My point is pedagogical and societal reforms. To move from a culture of chill and pour to one of genuine inquiry, we need to have a radical shift in how teaching is done. First point, from lecturing to inquiry-based learning. Instead of just feeding students, lectures must use the why and how behind every fact. Second point, media and information literacy. In the age of AI and misinformation, critical thinking must be treated as a defense mechanism. Third point, fostering a critical spirit. Organization must reward decency and Zeus and Rivers 2023 urge. We need to create reflective environments where employees feel safe to challenge superiors' flawed logic without fear personal retaliation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve Joseph, and I'm here to summarize and conclude the points my colleagues made. So, in a nutshell, critical thinking is the essential engine that drives both individual professional success and sustainable national development. It is the only defense we have against the psychological traps, against our brains, and social pressures of conformity. While formal education provides the foundation, true intellectual maturity is a lifelong discipline that requires us to value truth over comfort. By dismantling the barriers of ruling and intellectual arrogance, we can foster a society that doesn't just work hard but thinks deep. Thank you very much.